Hello, ladies. Happy Wednesday. I'm starting the call today, which kind of seems weird because that's usually Devon's thing. But here we are. I wrote down a couple notes on some topics we're going to talk about today, and then we are just going to follow our intuition and let it guide us to talk about whatever it is that we're going to talk about. So, we are going to talk about people pleasing, about addiction, and we'll kind of lead into how people pleasing can lead into addiction. Devon's got some cool stuff that maybe she can touch on that. Just talking about filling our cups with materialistic things versus actual things that fill our cup, like friends and travel and experience, that kind of thing. And then just talking about carving out time for ourselves and not feeling guilty for doing. So those are the few things that we're gonna chat about today, and I'm really excited about it. Um, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Dev, do you want to start with one of those
Okay.
topics?
Yeah, so some of the things that I've been going through and having breakthroughs on and kind of exploring within myself is where people pleasing stems from, because I think a lot of times it's definitely created in childhood. And I ended up having a conversation with my mom just the other day, and there was a lot going on when I was younger. My brother was in and out of foster care. He was kind of always getting himself into trouble, but there is a saying that even negative energy is still like energy taken kind of thing.
Mm,
So I was like trying to find things, and I think I wrote about it the other day, like trying to find things to make my mom see me differently and give me more attention, because I kind of always just blended in to the
mhm,
background. So her and I were kind of discussing that, and she said, "Well, I've told you before." She said, "You were the perfect child." And I said, "I was the perfect child at a sacrifice to who I really was."
mhm,
So while it made my mom's life easier, and like anyone else that was in around me, I became very familiar with adapting and almost becoming a chameleon to serve other people. But I lost myself, and like I wasn't honoring myself, I wasn't serving myself, I wasn't filling my cup by blending in. And
mhm.
so I think for the people pleasing part of it, that's where I'm starting to see, like, I'm really grateful I could be that for my mom, because I know that that time was stressful for her and I could feel that. But it did, it, I'm not going to say that I ever like, there's nothing to regret about past, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So I don't, I want to like say that, like, I don't look back on it and think, oh, wow, like, I wish that wouldn't have happened, or I am who I am and I'm a sensitive person, and that's how it is, right? So that's kind of the starting point for me. I don't know how, if you have a story, or
Um,
how
it's
you feel
actually
about that.
really crazy because I feel like the more time goes on, the more things we connect with. And you sharing that story, that is definitely where my people pleasing came from. At a young age, my dad was gone a lot. So my mom and sister butted heads. She was kind of like stepped into the role of my dad when he was away working all the time. And as we grew up and sort of got into our teen years, my sister was that difficult kind of child. And like my parents and her butted heads. And same with my brother. Like, so I seen what that did to our family. I didn't like disorder. I didn't like those negative feelings, that negative energy. And so I, much like you, just kind of kept the peace and did the things that I needed to do to make sure everybody else was happy, whether that meant I was happy or not. As long as there was no fighting, there was no arguing, it was a peaceful feeling. Those were the things that I did. My mom struggled a lot with her mental health when I was growing up, and so I did a lot of covering up for her, just making sure she was happy and safe so that everything else around us in our home was happy and safe. And I kind of took that on as my responsibility.
Mhm.
And going forward into relationships with friends, relationships with people in my family, I very much put myself on the back burner, and I would take all of the things that they were saying and suggesting and just do that. Because if it could make all of my relationships with the people around me happy, and there was no bad energy, if you will, there was no struggle in the relationships, and everybody was happy, I felt like it didn't matter that I wasn't happy as long as things were kind of flowing smoothly with everybody else around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that kind of leads in. We were talking the other day about reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and he touches on like addiction and that kind of thing, and why we become addicted to things, like the
Mhm.
actual chemistry behind it, which sometimes I feel a little lost in. But what I can relate to is like that feeling of not really knowing who I am and not really identifying with something. So you find something that you can fill yourself with.
Mhm.
And like for me, um, that was probably shopping. And I think it's like very common, like for a lot of people, and it's not always just alcohol. It's not always just drugs.
Yeah.
It's like video game addiction. It's Facebook addiction, like constantly scrolling for the likes. And also like shopping, whether it's for
Mhm.
clothes or I don't know, it could be more extravagant things like cars where you're like constantly trying to fill a void.
Mhm.
So we were kind of talking about that the other day, which I think is important to touch on because I think that a lot of people can really relate. Like, remember going to the mall and like finding a really good deal on things. And then I think as I got aged a little bit, I was like, well, I only want to buy things that I really like, but I still
Mhm.
got really excited about going shopping. And in my journal this year, I decided to um, change my idea of what I wanted for material things and experiences. And it's more actually, it's less about the material things and it's more about experiences and the feeling of things. So like um, if I can say this right, feng shui, like
Mhm.
simplifying, minimalizing your life, traveling. Like I want to experience that with my kids, and whether it's going down the lake or actually
Mhm.
flying somewhere. I don't really care what it looks like. It could be hiking up a mountain and having that experience. And what I've found is that I don't even miss shopping
Mhm.
because I decided this year that wasn't going to be something that I made a priority, and that it's not actually. And I don't know if it's just you were talking the other day in one of your posts of feeling an internal shift,
Mhm.
and I loved that. And I think that sometimes there is an internal shift and you don't even realize that it's
Mhm.
happened
Yeah.
until you look back.
Yeah. Totally. I
So,
think that's so incredible. And I love that you like brought to our attention that addiction is not necessarily just an alcohol addiction or drugs or whatever. Like it can go deeper that. And for me, my addiction that I experienced in pleasing everybody else was not appreciating who I was. My addiction turned into exercise. It wasn't exercising to take care of myself, it was punishment because I wasn't happy with who I was. I would run at the hottest point in the day because then I would sweat more and I would push myself until I almost threw up. I was working out at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I would not go to bed unless I did. I was constantly tracking my food and my calories and stepping on the scale and trying on clothes and constantly picking my body apart every chance I could get. And maybe a lot of people don't realize that that could be labeled as an addiction, but that was my addiction, was tearing myself apart, and just it was body image. And I punished myself by um, not eating certain things, by restricting all of those kind of things. And it's super damaging. It can be just as damaging on your mental health having an addiction like that as having an alcohol addiction or any other kind of addiction.
oh, yeah, 100%. I think that there's something to be said, and I would like challenge everyone to start looking at that part of themselves, because what I've found is that the more that I've surrounded myself with people who bring light into my life, that make me smile, make me laugh, challenge me, help me grow, um, and the more that I desire that and make that part of my daily routine, like affirmations, meditation,
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, all that, then the more that I feel that shift happening.
Yeah.
So, and you know, like I said, you don't even necessarily realize it's happening until you
Mhm.
like look back and you're like, oh yeah, like I remember what that felt like to feel like almost get a high when
Yes.
you're doing something like that. And now I'm like, I don't really know why I felt that way, but it
Mhm.
feels really amazing to know that clearly there's been healing that's taken place, and I don't
Yeah.
feel the need to go to that place. Instead, I'd rather, if I feel something, I'm calling my friend, or
Yeah.
I'm texting my friend, or you know, we're going for a walk or whatever to create better habits for
Mhm.
ourselves.
And
So,
I
and
think
you touched, well, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted you to, because you were talking the other day about filling your cup and not feeling guilty.
Mm, that's exactly where I was just going.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's like the perfect like entry into talking about taking care of ourselves and realizing that we are all extremely important. So Devon and I had this conversation about filling our cups, and she was talking about that materialistic part and like versus filling her cup with time and friends and experiences and all of those kind of things that actually fill her internally. And so I had a breakthrough, I think last week it was, and it was on not being a morning person and not being worth enough to spend the extra time investing in myself. And so I made a commitment that my mornings start at 5:30 every morning because I'm worthy of that and I need to invest in myself and fill my cup. If I wake up in the morning before everybody else and I spend time really, really being present and taking time to do affirmations and gratitude and pray and spend time in meditation, do all of those things and completely fill my cup to overflowing before the world even wakes up, what an incredible gift I have now to serve other people. And I'm feeling full and I have the energy for my family and my friends. And I feel like I have more time. Um, I mean, essentially, I do waking up that early, but then I sort of had this moment after I was like pumped up about this where I instantly was feeling guilt over it. Like, oh, should I could just lay in bed and like snuggle my husband who's home all the time now. The kids like to come in and wake me up in the morning. Like I'm robbing them of waking them up in the morning and snuggling with me for a few minutes. All of these things that I was like, like now I feel really bad that I'm getting up early. And I really had to just stop and self-reflect that that is not okay to feel that way because I'm worthy of that. If Devon was like, hey, Tamara, do you want to wake up at 6 and meet me on a Zoom call? We can have a morning chat and a coffee. You bet I would be there. If one of my girlfriends was like, hey, let's go for a coffee, you know, at this time, or do you want to wake up and let's go for a walk and watch the sunrise? You bet I'm going to be there. So I am just important as setting up a phone call with Devon or going for a walk or a coffee with a friend. And so it was really that recognition that I need to show up for me without guilt, without any of those negative feelings, because I'm worth that. And
Hmm.
I think it's just important to really recognize that in yourself, that you are important and you're worthy of all of the time, all of the energy, all of the money that you can invest in yourself. Because if we are not filling our own cups, we have nothing to give to anybody else. And so it was just like this really cool recognition this week in seeing that. And I'm waking up guilt free this morning, like not even thinking about that, just enjoying my time watching the sunrise and having coffee and writing in my journal and doing all the things that fill my cup because I know how important that is.
Hmm.
Um, so just in kind of little encouragement too is that if you're feeling any of that guilt, like figure out where it's coming from so that you can break through that and be able to move to the other side of it because it's so, so important not to move through your day feeling guilty over taking anything away from anybody else.
Hmm. Well, I think it's like important to recognize and also point out that when you say that you're going to do something for yourself, you made a commitment to
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And to honor and respect that, I would say, is one of the most important things that you can do. And you may not realize it at the time, but let me tell you something. You keep breaking that promise to yourself over and over and over again, you are creating a belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And you're creating a belief system that isn't going to serve you. So like, you know, I just think, and then I think like, so, you know, morning time is like an easy one to kind of relay because a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm not a morning person, or
Mhm.
you know, whatever.
Mhm.
So I think the important thing is like you could lay in bed and you could push snooze and you could push snooze and you can say like, oh, you know, like I just need, and you're trying to talk to yourself about it. Like you're trying to convince yourself why, the
Yeah.
reason why you
Yeah.
can't get out of bed. But I will say this, that if you don't get up and you lay there longer and you actually don't fall back asleep, because your soul knows that you've already broken that promise to yourself and you will feel that. The thing is we
Mhm.
try and shove it down and we try and get rid of it
Yeah.
instead of acknowledging it and just getting up, because if you and there, so you might feel guilt right on the other end, like what you were talking about,
Mhm.
but you will probably feel guilty on the other end where you let yourself down. And
Absolutely.
there's a reason you feel that way.
Yeah.
Like you know, we always, I think a lot of times we think, oh, you know, like it doesn't really matter because it's just for me. But as you said, if your friend calls you and says, hey, do you want to do this at 6? You're going to show up and you're going to be there. So why are we so willing to compromise our own honor and how we can serve ourselves and what
Mhm.
that looks like? Because if you can't show up for yourself like that, what does, like, how are you going to show up for the other people?
Absolutely. And I feel like if we, and I really am recognizing this in myself, if I'm not showing up for me, I'm just telling myself I'm not important. If you
Mhm.
asked me to show up for you, would I say, nah, you're not important, Deb. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
Of course I wouldn't, because you mean so much to me. And we need to view ourselves as that, because we're so worthy of having that love for ourselves that we have for our best friends and our mom and our sister and all of these people in our lives. And I feel like somehow, for some reason, we don't recognize that we get to have that in ourselves. Because if we're, like you said, if we're just breaking that promise, and really that fuels into the rest of our life. If I'm not showing up for me, it makes it easy to not show up for other people
Oh
because I'm
yeah.
not even valuing myself.
Mhm. Well, and like this, I can't remember if we heard this at UFD or if I've heard it from somewhere else, but they say how you show up for one thing, you show up for all
Yes,
things.
that's absolutely was UFD. I
Yeah.
remember that.
So
Yeah.
that if that's the truth and you can't commit to yourself, you will always find a reason to break that promise to yourself. You'll always find a reason to break that promise to other people.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to, it's, we always look at the external
Hmm.
world and we think, oh, you know, like if I could just do this or have that, then I could be better at this, or, you know, but ultimately every single thing that we do and every situation, opportunity, all starts from within. So if we can't change what's going on the inside, it's going to reflect in our world. We
Mm.
create our world, so it's going to reflect out here. And anything that we don't like that we're seeing, you really need to flip the mirror around and look at what's going on the inside. And I think, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm almost at a place now where I'm just so willing to flip the mirror as much as it hurts sometimes and look at it and be
Mm.
like, okay, what do I need to learn? Like, what's the opportunity here to
Yes.
experience this? Like that kind of stuff, because I want to become better and better and better, and I want to
Mm.
grow and I want to grow like all the
Yes.
time. So I don't know why that's an impression that I have on my heart. I'm just following my intuition in
Mm.
saying that, but I feel like a lot of times it's always a hard pill to swallow when someone says, if you don't like what you see, then
Mhm.
you need to like look inside.
I think that is so amazing, Devin, because honestly, I sat this morning and I wrote out my post for today and I just haven't posted it yet. And it was literally talking about we are not going to find happiness in anything or anyone around us when we can start to look inside and we can start to value who we are and start loving ourselves. Everything else will just start to follow.
Yes.
Because if we
So
can't change that, what's on the inside, and we can't recognize that, what are we going to do? We're going to look for it in things, materialistic things, shopping. We're going to look for it in other people, approval from other people, people pleasing. All of those
mhm.
things is what the external things that we're going to look for. And all of that internal work is what needs to be done first. And when you're talking about like looking in the mirror and trying to figure out what the lesson is, I think that's so powerful because it is so easy for us to point a finger and blame somebody else. Well, I responded that way because so and so said this and it made me angry. Well, guess what? They didn't make you angry. That was your choice to be angry because of what they said.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to just blame them for that. But when we can do the flip of the mirror, like you said, and go, hold up, what is going on inside that I can change? How can I be a better person? Why did I respond this way? I think you start to learn more and more how to become aware like that. And it's a super powerful thing to have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I think that's perfect. I think that what you just said actually summarizes perfectly everything that we've just talked about. And I really hope that everyone that chooses to watch this can get something out of that, because I mean, I know we go through like quite a bit of stuff, and some of it, you know, you might feel some resistance about, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to feel the resistance. And we're all at different places in our life. And when I speak, and I know when Tamara speaks, or when Courtney's around and she's joining us for the videos, like, we are just all speaking from our own experience, and out of love, never, you know, like, never coming from a place that's not from love. So yeah, I hope everyone, all you ladies, can get something, or gentlemen, whoever chooses to watch this on YouTube. But yeah, I just loved that, and I hope everyone has an amazing, amazing day.
I think
Anything
that's
else,
perfect.
Tamara?
That's good. I think we're just going to end it right there.
Okay, awesome.